Good morning, mathematicians. This is lesson 9 of our Unit 1, Measure Figures Made from Prisms. In this cooldown, we're going to find the volume of this figure, and we notice in this figure as well as in our figures in our lessons that it's made of multiple prisms. We must find the volume of the figure, and our strategy is going to be to divide this so that we really have two different prisms. We will calculate the volume of each individual prism and then add those two volumes together to get the volume of this complete figure. Now, the first choice we have is to divide this vertically, like so, to make two prisms, or to divide it horizontally. Now, I will show both of those answers because hopefully you have done one of those strategies. You can check your work, but also see an additional strategy, which of course is good for our brain to see the thinking of others. So let's go ahead and let's start with the idea of a vertical slice. If I slice this to create a prism here on the left and a prism on the right with this vertical line, we are going to calculate the volume of prism A, and then we're going to come over and we're going to calculate the volume of prism B. So let's get started with prism A, right? This is going to be my work for prism A, like a brainstorm of such. So I am going to be using the idea that volume can be formulated by multiplying together the three dimensions. So first we're going to build that expression. We're going to think about what is the length, the width, and the height of my prism, and I'm going to multiply those things together. Now, of course, on the top I can see the top face, and I know that that bottom face would be the same. So I do see a length of 2, I see a width of 1, and this idea of 5 here is that height that makes it stand up and off the base. So I now know those three dimensions. I have built my equation, and now I can actually solve. I know that 2 times 1 is 2 and 2 times 5 is 10. So I know this has a volume of 10 feet cubed. So that is my final answer, but only for prism A. Now we're going to come and we're going to be calculating the volume of prism B, because in our strategy we have divided this into individual prisms so that we can find their volume. Then we'll add those numbers together. Now, one thing that we must be careful of, and we've talked about that, a very common misconception, is sometimes I've noticed our students will take a look and we'll see here this idea of 6, and we'll label that the length of B is 6. But what we must attend to is this detail that we have not used that whole length, we've only used this much of it. So as such, be careful and make sure that you are using the correct numbers. This is the actual length right here, right? We're only using this much of that 6-foot line, and that just happens to be 4 feet of that 6-foot line. Now I can see that it has a height of 2. What I'm lacking, what I need to know, is the width here. And remember to look at dimensions that of course are congruent dimensions. And here I see that the width is going to be a foot, just like the width was a foot over here in this moment of prism A. So now I have my 3 dimensions. I'm not going to be using the 6. I am going to be using the 4 for the length. I'm going to be using the idea of the 1 for the width. And I know that it has a height of exactly 2 feet. Now I'm going to do my 4 times 1 is 4 and 4 times 2 is 8. So I know that the volume is exactly 8 feet cubed, right? All right, I have got those two numbers. What I must do is join those together. So I see that prism A was 10 feet. Prism B is 8 feet. Well, of course, we know that 8 plus 10 is 18, and we remember that we always report volume in the units cubed. So that is 18 feet cubed. Now, everything that I have thus far on the page is really like the brainstorm that has led to this moment where I'm ready to explain or show my reasoning, because I know what my answer is and I've clearly understood. I've made a plan, I've carried out my plan, I've found my final answer. So now I'm ready to type out what that explanation is. I am going to unveil what I have written to be my explanation of the strategy. And this particular strategy was vertically dividing the object into two prisms. Okay, so that is what I wrote down for my explanation. Vertically cutting the figure makes two prisms. A 5 by 2 by 1 foot prism on the left and a 4 by 2 by 1 foot prism on the right. The total volume is, in parentheses, I have 5 times 2 times 1 plus, and then in another set of parentheses, I have 4 times 2 times 1 cubic feet, which is 10 plus 8 or 18 cubic feet. So that is a complete answer. I have my brainstorm, which I've written out by hand, but my final answer is what is typed in the red bold font. So if you are checking your work, that is what you want to look and see. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and talk about an additional strategy. Be clear, you did not have to show this. You did not have to show this in two different ways, but it is good for our brain to see another strategy. And additionally, you may have divided your prisms horizontally, and in which case we would have gotten to the same answer, but you would have gotten to it in a little bit of a different problem-solving strategy, and I do want to make sure that I go over that as well. So if you will take a look, I am going to actually erase the work that I have done for our strategy number 1. If you are still needing any of this, of course, go back in the video and you can almost like go back in time and see all of this scrap work once again. Because now what I'm going to do is a strategy number 2 where I'm going to be dividing the shape, but I'm going to divide it with a horizontal line. So a horizontal line lays on its side, unlike a vertical line, which is an up and down line. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to be doing a horizontal slice. So now, boys and girls, I am going to be taking my prisms and I'm going to divide them up like this. So I am going to go ahead and take away my final answer for that strategy number 1. And we're going to move on to how would it look to horizontally splice our prisms. If we horizontally splice our prisms, we still are going to have a prism A and a prism B. So we are going to label this as our prism A. The prism A is going to be that smaller prism on top, and we're going to have our prism B, which is the larger prism that actually lays on the base. Well, both of them have the base technically, but this one definitely has a larger base. So let's go ahead and let's get started. We're going to use a similar strategy. We are going to calculate the volume of prism A first. Now prism A is this one, the one that is the smaller prism. We are going to use still the idea of building our expression by multiplying together the 3 dimensions. Now I do see that it has a length and a width of 2 and 1, which certainly was similar to my strategy that we've already gone over, but I noticed that the height is different here. I'm only using this much of the 5 feet that we see all the way to the left of our object, so we're going to be multiplying it by a height of 3. Now 2 times 1 times 3 does give us a height of 6, and that is going to be 6 cubic feet. So now we have that part done. We have calculated the prism of A. Now we're going to go ahead and calculate the prism of B. We're going to calculate the volume, I should say, of B. Now we're going to calculate the volume of B by building our equation, multiplying together the length and the width and the height. So where is the width? Well, remember that width can be found on this congruent and parallel side or edge of our shape. So we are going to have a width of 1. So we're going to have a length of 6, a width of 1, as we just said, and we're going to be having a height of 2. Now 6 times 1 times 2 is going to give us an overall volume of 12, and that is 12 cubic feet. That is the volume of prism B. So now, boys and girls, we're going to take the volume of A and the volume of B, and we're going to add those together to get, once again, the volume for both prisms, which makes our complete object. That's going to be 18 feet cubed. Now that does give us the numbers that we need in order to create our final answer, right? Now, expectedly, we're going to get to the same answer, 18 feet cubed. We weren't looking to find a different answer. What we did expect is that our dimensions might be slightly different because we've created two different prisms. So once again, let me show what a final answer might look like if you use this strategy of horizontally dividing up this object. This answer says, horizontally cutting the figure makes two prisms, a 3 by 2 by 1 foot prism on the top, and a 6 by 2 by 1 foot prism on the bottom or on the right. The total volume is 3 times 2 times 1 plus 6 times 2 times 1 cubic feet, which is 6 plus 12 or 18 cubic feet. So that would be a good answer to really explain what the reasoning is for getting to that idea of 18 cubic feet. But if you were using the strategy of dividing it up horizontally, that completes our Lesson 9 cool down.